episode of Fully Booked. I'm Meaghan.
And I'm Shereen.
And today we're talking about the atmospheric horror.
I like how you're trying to create the atmosphere with your voice.
I don't have any atmosphere. My voice is too nasal for
felt
there to be
the fog.
rolling in.
The moors.
Yeah. So today we're going to kind of have a chat through about folk horror, which is a genre that, I mean, in horror spaces, it gets a lot of hype and a lot of people like it. But I feel like outside of that, people are like, huh?
Yeah, I'm like on that spectrum. So I think you're going to need to,
I'm going to walk you through it.
You're going to walk me through this and explain to the wide world why this gets so much attention.
Yeah. Because of just there are levels of atmosphere to this particular subgenre that I think are probably underappreciated, and they need a little bit more love. But there are a lot of instances in which we're seeing more of it now. Definitely on the film side of things, it never went away in literature, as far as I can tell. It's just regularly been something that's published for a very long time, and there's more of it around than you think there is.
Interesting. Now I'm thinking I'm Call of Cthulhu.
No.
See, this is why I'm heh.
I mean, kind of. I guess you could try and shoehorn it in there, but it does feel a bit weird. It feels like a reach. I don't know.
All right, you're gonna have to walk
That's
me
like
through
cosmic
this.
horror for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like space adjacent, but stuff that's on the earth. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Like ancient monsters. That's like cosmic horror for me.
Oh, okay, fair.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway.
Okay, then you're really gonna have to walk me through folk horror.
Okay, great. No, it's fine. It's fine. Okay, let's, I guess, walk through the definition of it to start off with. So generally speaking, folk horror is a subgenre, obviously, of horror literature that's characterized largely by its setting, which is often rural and very isolated in its setting, either small towns or maybe woodland communities of some sort, or things at the edge of a forest, a lot of that type of stuff.
Okay.
Often explores themes of folklore and legends, superstitions, and on particularly the Western side of the world, pagan beliefs.
Okay.
So, and in other parts of the world, definitely beliefs of other cultures as well, but that are largely considered old world to a degree, right? So the stories most of the time will explore things like different legends or myths of previous generations, and the rituals and practices that come along with them that are considered largely odd for a more modern audience that are reading these stories. Okay, so there's a feeling of confusion and kind of it's sort of disconcerting to a degree because of these sort of much of the time the people involved in them are have these rituals or practices in place that we're whoa, wait, what? As a modern person kind of reading the novel, a lot of them will touch on to a degree the power of nature itself. There's a heavy focus on the landscape and the setting of the story. Is it in a small rural community? Is it in the woods? Is it here? Is it there? Whatever it is. And most of the time, at the very least one character, possibly multiple characters, but oftentimes at the very least one character, or normally the protagonist, honestly, is an outsider to a community like this, a very isolated, very closed off community, and they act as the reader's sort of surrogate.
Yeah, exactly. It's the exposition,
for whom things have to be explained, essentially, right? And so there are a lot of, and it mostly features because you have this outsider character, it touches largely on the clashes between modern advancements and old traditions and the old way of doing things. And so the themes around sort of what is better.
Yeah, the past battling with the present.
Yes.
And some characters wanting to hold on to the past
And,
versus
the idea of tradition and how we've always done things a certain way and we should not
personifying tradition.
Yes.
Yeah.
But in these particular stories, it often manifests itself in a way of some sort of ritualistic practice very often. Like I said, a lot of them lean very heavily towards paganism.
Okay.
And folklore of old.
Occult. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, that's it. There's a lot of that sort of aspects of things. So anyway, there are kind of countless examples to an extent. Even last week, we were talking about YA horror, and we were talking a little bit about things like Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews, and that kind of, I'm not saying that it is completely folk horror, but there's a lot of rotting in the woods and like creatures hiding in there type of thing, and they're like fairy tale type creatures, that it does kind of toe the line a little bit into that genre of story.
So would you say, like, because the way that we were describing YA horror was this coming of age, like the horror itself is like a representation of the fears that you may have as a young adult.
Yeah.
Would you say that folk horror is about more like the landscape, more about the setting and the horrors of like a changing world?
Yes. Yeah, I was going to say that's exactly what it is. The fear comes from the idea of change. Oftentimes that's where like the horror comes from, is the fear of change and advancements in some way, and what creates the level of often creepiness or atmosphere in some capacity. Oftentimes, yes, is like the sort of ritualistic side of things, but also the setting itself. And the setting itself, very often in these stories, is almost its own character to a degree. So,
like so there's like a personification of the setting itself.
Exactly. So I was looking at like, some, I guess, more popular examples of this from the last like 5-6 years. So there's a novel called Slewfoot by Brom, which is a tale of witchery, I think is the subtitle of the novel. It's set in a small like colonial New England village in the 1600s, so height of like the witch trial style of things. The story itself follows a character. Her name is Abatha. She's accused of witchcraft by like the Puritans in the village, and like her neighbors and stuff like that, and has to fight against that. And it also follows her kind of budding relationship that develops between her and this, again, very ancient creature in the woods that awakens, that is called Slewfoot. Like that's its name. So it like obviously it very heavily leans into like the pagan like themes, but there's also like themes of like oppression, justice, and exploring the idea of like true villainy. Like, is this weird creature the villain, or are the Puritans in town the villain for their persecution of someone? Like those kinds of ideas. Yeah. There's oftentimes like a lot of folk horror focuses, because it focuses on paganism. There's a lot of like aspects of witchcraft that are explored within that, right? And like the sort of quote unquote wrongness of practices like witchcraft, which are still something that's like that are like semi considered like worthy of persecution today, that kind of thing, and that people consider odd or out of the norm.
Yeah, I'm like thinking about like what was that movie, Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water?
Yeah.
Like that kind of creature, for example.
Yeah, that's it. Like your creature from the Black Lagoon kind of thing. Yeah, that's it.
And I guess, would you say that like cryptids fall under folk horror?
I definitely think that they can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
I'm thinking about the Mothman.
Not that movie, though. Not the Mothman prophecies.
Go back and listen to our podcast episode. It's awesome.
That fucking episode.
We so enjoyed that movie.
That episode is ridiculous, but God, that movie sucks. It was a good episode. Sometimes, you know what? Yeah, sometimes some of our best episodes come out of some of the worst films that we've watched to talk about.
Well, it's because we have nothing to say about the movie, so we just end up talking shit.
Yes, correct, for a half hour, so you just get to hear us be ridiculous for 30 minutes.
Lucky you.
So another probably really solid one. I was trying to like take a look at some that explore like certain different aspects of folklore to a degree. So like Slewfoot relies a lot on like the witchcraft and like Puritan times, and like the puritanical sort of regime that existed in New England, especially in the 1600s, because it was such a huge thing that was happening at that time. Yeah. And the ideas of like, new and old, that kind of stuff. Yeah. One of the other ones that I was taking a look at that I have read actually is called The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. Okay. So that one is folk horror that follows, the folklore of like indigenous peoples, essentially. Stephen Graham Jones is an indigenous author. He is incredibly popular. He's a really interesting writer. The Only Good Indians, I would say, like I wasn't like a crazy fan of the narrative style of it, but I have read a couple of his books, and they're all vastly different from each other.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's like an author who can do that.
It's really interesting to read his stuff. And so I wasn't like a huge fan of the, I guess, narrative style of this, but the story is fascinating. Okay. So it explores a lot of like generational trauma and racism obviously come into play a lot in this, as well as like themes of like guilt and shame. It touches on themes of substance abuse and like a bunch of different things like that as well. Because basically what it does is It plays out in like kind of two different timelines, and it follows four Blackfeet men who are basically haunted by the repercussions of their actions on a hunting trip 10 years prior.
Okay.
And there's an incident, I won't give anything away, but there's an incident that takes place that kind of follows them back to a decade later. And they each kind of begin to experience bizarre instances of being seemingly stalked, I guess, by some sort of entity that's like looking to punish them for what happened a decade prior.
Interesting.
To a degree. And it touches on all kinds of other sort of aspects of things, but it is it really is mostly, I would say, like an exploration for them, particularly of the lead character, and I believe his name is Lewis from what I remember, of like the guilt and shame that come along with like the grief that he deals with.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I'm sitting here like pondering the way that you're describing folk horror, and I'm trying to think like, is it that they need to overcome their past to move forward with their future, and like it's the past that brings the horror?
I think in some instances of it is.
Yeah, or is it the change? Is it the place? Like, I guess all of these things can go together, right?
They can. I don't see why not.
Yeah.
And I feel like there are definitely stories in which that all of those things are true at once.
I was just going to say that
Yeah.
because, like, you could be in a setting that is changing with time, and with modern times, you're now afraid of what that means for the future.
Yep.
You have to overcome a past. Like, I'm thinking of the movie The Village by M. Night Shyamalan.
Yep. Oh, The Village is full folk horror.
Yeah, that's a great movie. I don't think it's a book adaptation,
It,
but just an
no, it's not.
example.
No.
Yeah, that's a good one that
That's
I'm
a good
thinking of now.
folk horror wise on the film side of things.
Yeah.
For people who want another reference point, The Wicker Man is like a perfect.
Yeah.
Not the Nicolas Cage one. I know it largely follows the same story, but like it's ridiculous. But the like particularly the original film and the idea behind it, right, as a detective who leaves the mainland of Scotland, if I'm not mistaken, and travels by boat to a very small isolated island in which I believe that's it, a young woman has gone missing, and he is sent there from the mainland, from the city, to investigate. And when he gets there, he begins to realize that there are a lot of very bizarre old world practices that the people of the island are participating in. And he does not understand them, does not believe in them. And of course, also this was the 70s. So this person is like, a practicing Christian and does not believe in the sort of idea of like the freewheeling kind of like nature loving things. But he obviously also begins to realize that there's something much more sinister going on within the town to do with this woman's disappearance in the first place. And I won't give away, if you for some reason haven't like seen it or don't know what the story is, I won't give it away. But particularly for its time, the ending of the story has quite a twist to it of what the real reason is that he has wound up going to this island. It's an interesting one, and it honestly still holds up. Like the film is very solid. The Nicolas Cage one from the early aughts is just the over the top performance really takes you out of really.
That's the one I've seen.
Oh gosh. If you watch the original, it's very different.
It's different
to watch. It's much quieter, and there's a slower
as soon as you said
build.
The Wicker Man, I could just
Not the
see
beast.
Yeah, exactly. That's all I can picture.
Yeah, and like there's this scene where he like fucking like karate kicks Lily Sobieski's character, and so it's just it's terrible and very funny. And like, thank God I've seen the original, because I'm like, oh, thank God there's a good story in here somewhere. But...
See, that's sad, because that's a perfect example of an adaptation that doesn't have any heart.
Like a remake that has nothing good going for it, particularly other than like maybe some
Nick Cage moments.
Some entertainment, I guess, to a degree, like some absurdity, but it's too bad because it takes you out of it a lot.
Oh yeah, you're not getting the actual crux of what the story's trying to tell you.
God, no, not at all. And actually, the original film stars Christopher Lee, so that's fun. We love that. Yeah, we love Christopher Lee. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
For real.
I can just hear his voice all of a sudden.
As Saruman specifically. Yeah. I know. Another one actually that's a good example that maybe not everybody's read the book, but you might have seen the movie because it came out last year, is The Watchers by A.M. Shine. So this novel is also, again, another different kind of aspect of folklore. So it follows a woman named Meaghan. She becomes very lost in this very dense forest when her car breaks down as she's trying to like travel from one place to another. She goes wandering into the forest. She cannot seem to find her way out. What she finds instead is this very isolated bunker in the middle of the woods in which there are all these people hiding, and they like coax her in because they're like, no, get in here. You got to get in here. She goes inside, and through speaking to these other people who are there, she learns that basically if you don't remain, there are creatures in the woods, and if you don't remain in the bunker overnight, they all come out to observe you because there's a whole glass wall around.
Oh, geez.
And if you try to leave, something bad happens.
Oh my God.
From these creatures in the woods. Anyway, this
was the one on Netflix?
No, this was a theatrical release, actually.
What am I thinking of?
I don't know. I don't know. Shereen.
I don't know. Okay.
This story is actually heavily inspired by Irish folklore. So like the fae folk and changelings and things like that of like old Irish folklore. That's what the story itself is
Sounds
about.
Like a great adaptation.
It's, you know what? It wasn't terrible. A lot of people didn't like it.
Okay.
I didn't hate it. It was actually the first, I believe, a feature debut, I should say, or a large like feature directorial debut of M. Night Shyamalan's daughter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because she was in the...
No, not that one.
Okay.
The other daughter.
Oh,
he's got two.
He's got two.
Yeah, he's got a couple. So yeah, one of them is an actress. This
Okay.
one is actually a director.
Interesting. All right.
So yeah,
I
she
think you
directed.
told me about this at the time.
Yeah, so she directed this film. It stars Dakota Fanning as the lead character,
Add it
Meaghan.
to the list.
Yeah.
It sounds really good.
Yeah, this one's very much, so this one's a lot more like legends and myths and stuff like that. And I really didn't know where it was going for a while, which was kind of interesting actually. And this one's a lot of like themes of like isolation and survival and observation and confinement. Like, because really these creatures that come out, they want to watch them. That's why it's called the Watchers, because they want to come out and watch them. Yeah, it's very strange. And there is like, there are certain aspects of grief and things like that from like a personal thing that Mina herself is dealing with. But yeah, it's interesting. But there's a large focus on like, sort of ancient legends and like the power of like nature itself and these things that adapt and change which obviously the idea of changelings and like Irish folklore and all that kind of stuff as well. So yeah, I thought it was an interesting story because it tackled an aspect of folklore that we don't see very often, which is like from like the fae folk, like fairy folk of old, and the old way that they are described. Like not what you're getting right now with like romantasy and stuff like that, where you see a lot of this. This is like, these are like the old ways where they were tricksters and changelings and shapeshifters, and that was what they did.
Which is actually interesting because if I think of like, I'm digressing here, but if I think of like Quicksilver, where the fae were the bad guys, and they are even in Akatar, like the way that they are perceived by the humans is the way you just described tricksters and changelings, and like they're going to attack you and whatnot. So it's interesting that we've collectively taken that aspect, and to your point, this is why we don't see fairies in anything anymore. From a negative standpoint.
No, not at all, because we're seeing them as like romantic leads now. So
exactly,
where the literary world is taking them in a different direction.
And stuff.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of like, these were kind of like, I was looking for like different examples, but yeah, I mean, so okay, based on everything I've just told you, what do you find, or are you picking out maybe specific elements that make that I mean from your perspective now anyway, would make folk horror into like a very like scary subgenre? Particularly, like what do you think would create the fear in something like that?
Yeah, because it's funny you asked that, because I was trying to see that angle of it as we were chatting. I can see how it would be scary from the point of view of putting myself in the shoes of the protagonist,
of your outsider.
Yeah. Like, I've just arrived in this place, something's kind of weird going on, and the people are really weird, and now I'm hearing about these legends and these traditions, and like what the fuck is going on, kind of thing. Like, so I can see the horror being more like a discomfort, a lack of understanding of what's going on when everyone else around you knows what's going on. That in itself is really uncomfortable.
That's a big one I'm thinking of film, but that's a big one in Midsommar. Is those elements of things, the idea of someone on the outside coming in, and so many people around the lead characters and stuff know what's going on.
But they just won't say.
But they won't say or explain themselves properly because they have their own agenda and their own reason for doing things. So,
which is kind of the case of what you're describing
very
in
much
folk horror.
Yeah.
Because if somebody is trying to defend their tradition, then they're not going to tell me what's going on. They're not going to divulge that information. They have their own agenda. So there's something very scary and jarring about that thought to me.
About showing up somewhere, feeling isolated, and not knowing what's going on.
And not being able to leave.
No.
Because that's
there is a lot of that. There's a lot
bet.
of you can't go anywhere.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's not just like the fear of change. Because if you're the outsider who's just gone in, you've already made a change.
Yes.
So you've come past that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I guess what I'm wondering as like a final thought for things is just with the world as it is right now, advancements in like technology and a lot of modernization that's happening in a lot of things, do we think that this is a subgenre that we will continue to see on a regular basis?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. And the way I would kind of think about that is we may almost see a bit of an overlap with like sci-fi.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Because, and you could do it because if you think like a lot of what we're talking about these days is AI. It's all about AI. It's all about how it's going to take over our jobs, take over the world.
And we're seeing a lot of that in sci-fi literature, 100%.
We are.
But also some of it's crossing over into the horror genre as well. Yeah.
And we've talked about how there's been like horror... AI horror. What was that one called? William or something?
Yes.
That was a book that came out that you told me about. And so if you were to think about, fast forward a few years when we're a little bit more established in this area of things, I'm sure there's going to be some overlap of like this small town wants nothing to do with your AI
this advancement in this and that.
Yeah, and so I think we are going to see this more and more, especially if we're talking about fear of change, going back to traditional values, going back. We're going to see a lot of this.
Yeah, I could see that being used as like a particular outlet.
Oh, definitely.
For these sorts of things.
For both opinions.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Whether you want the tradition or you want that modernization to be happening, because it's just an exploration of fear from both sides, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah.
And those will be the best ones.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because, like, I feel like, I don't know, and I know it got, like, a ton of flack at the time, but, like, you mentioned The Village earlier, right?
Yep.
And that, I feel like, is a really good example of kind of both of those things because it is an isolated community who's decided that they want nothing to do with the modern world specifically, and they reject that and isolate themselves purposefully.
And their children.
Until, unfortunately, that's it, their children are thrust into the realization that they don't live in the world that they thought they did.
Yeah.
And that's like where that aspect of fear and horror comes from.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, it's so scary. It's a way better film than people have given it credit for. I think on re-examination, a lot of people like it now.
Yeah.
Because when it came out, it got a ton of flack.
Oh, I remember. People thought it was really stupid.
Yeah, and they were like, it's so dumb. And I'm like...
Okay, to be fair, like, the people in the monster costumes may have thrown it a little bit,
I know. Yeah, it's like a little hokey, but...
Yeah. But the idea, the psychology behind it was really interesting.
I agree. I think it's one of his most original ideas.
Agree.
Which is very cool. So that's the problem. You start at the peak, and it's so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard I feel bad for a lot of the flack he's gotten over the years.
But he does have an upcoming novel with Nicholas
God.
Sparks.
Oh my God. Okay. We came across this literally today, which is why Shereen's sharing this news now. And I'm like,
Meaghan does not know how to feel about this. Neither do I. I'm super pumped, though. I want to read it.
You're coming at it from like a happier place. I'm coming at it from a place of like, oh my God, what the fuck? I feel very thrown.
Oh, I think it's going to be a trip.
It's going to be wild.
Yeah.
Anyway, add that one to the DVR.
Yeah, exactly. Put it up on the list, priority.
Anyway, this episode was a total, just like, for me, just like a fun little way of like exploring a little bit of like, it's just like a fun little exploration of a subgenre that I find very cool. I'm super into atmospheric horror. Like I really love something in which like the setting is a character and it makes you feel something when you're watching it. And I mean, I guess like not like so much that I'm like, oh my God, I need to leave the room, but like I like the idea that the atmosphere of a story when I'm reading it creates a level of unease in me where I'm kind of like shifting around a little bit like, whoa, okay, what the hell's going on? Like, why am I here? Why is this person here? What's going on? What does this mean? That kind of aspect of things.
I think it's certainly very interesting to have the setting personified to the point where that's the horror.
Yeah, I know that's not the case with every
Not
story,
all of it.
but I do find that very often it kind of becomes its own thing because there's so many descriptions of the landscape or the setting in which it's taking place. So it almost does, it just becomes kind of its own thing.
Yeah.
Really, which I kind of love.
I might have to get you to recommend me some of these because it sounds more up my street.
I think so because you like
like
a
the
gothic
fantasy.
story
Yeah.
and stuff that has to do with like nature and different things like that and fantasy, and it almost kind of leans into that oftentimes as well. And you like witches.
I do.
So,
Love a good witch.
yeah. So I feel like all of that kind of combines to make something a pretty interesting package.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing this one up, Meaghan.
Yes, I've educated everybody.
So educated.
Oh boy. Anyway, if you guys want to take a look at all of our kind of like horror coverage and everything for the month going on over on the website, you can check out fullybooked.ca because all of that's going on over there, and I always forget to plug the website, but I should. The meantime, before next week, you can check out all of our socials as well. So Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. We're at fullybookedca. But until next week, guys, keep on reading. Thanks, everyone.